Basically, what it is all growers, no matter how big or how small, are limited by their financial ability to grow that crop. And what I use is this thing I call the 10 penny example. Every grower has only 10 pennies to spend, and most growers will allocate their expenditure something like this. Maybe 5 pennies of their expenditure is usually their labor and associated costs with labor, whether it might be their insurance and their workers' compensation package and all those sorts of things. All that leaves them 5 pennies. Well, out of that 5 pennies, most of those pennies are going to be spent on pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. Usually 3 to 4 of those 5 pennies. And that 1 penny that's left, or a part of a penny that's left, is usually spent on fertilization. Well, the problem with that example is that you're fighting pests and diseases that are never going to go away. So you won't ever win. But what you do is you fight those things because you're afraid to get ate up. You're afraid to get destroyed by disease or by pests. And your PCA and your large chemical companies tell you that if you stop doing this, you'll die. Well, by continuing to do it and continuing to spend more money, when you don't make any more money, you're going to die anyway. You're just going to die slow,
okay,
versus die quickly. So what usually happens is a grower gets to the point to where he realizes that he's dying slowly, and so he's going to make a change. So I tell growers, well, why don't we reallocate those 10 pennies? Instead of spending, 3.5 to 4.5 pennies on pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, why don't we spend 2 pennies on pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, and spend the other 2 pennies on fertilization, nutrients? Because what we'll do is we'll increase the size of your crop, give you more production, which gives you more pennies. The second thing is that if we're able to do this in some sort of balanced fashion, then what we do is we increase not only the nutrient uptake of the plant, but the complexity of those nutrients, thereby increasing the microbiological diversity, which changes the microclimate and thereby reduces diseases. And on top of that, if we complex those nutrients within the plant, we get a higher Brix level, which we know will decrease pest pressure, because there are many single-bodied, simple sugar-eating pests that cannot ingest complex sugars. So by doing so, what happens is we actually reallocate those pennies. We reduce costs, because fertilizers and fungicides are horribly expensive. They are much more expensive than nutrients. So we get a lot more nutrients for the same amount of money as we spend on pesticides and fungicides. We can increase crop production, which basically adds more money to the grower's pocket without increasing his cost. And what we do is we set them up to be successful again the next year. So what we're doing is we're changing that paradigm. We are moving the center of gravity in the equation. And by doing so, we set them up to be successful long term. Because any type of crop you grow, prices go up and prices go down. Your ability to survive is not based upon your ability to make money when the market's high. Your ability to survive is based upon your ability to make money when the market's low. And the only way to do that is to find a way to reduce cost and increase production. The problem with most conventional growers and the big chemical companies is the big chemical companies don't make any more profit by allowing you to make more money. They actually make more profit the more hostage you are to them, the more dependent you are upon them. So that's basically where it comes from. So we're talking about reallocating those pennies. I don't advocate growers spending more money. That's not what I'm advocating.
So in that example, the farmer ends up with a bit of profit, whereas he might have had a part of a penny left for profit. Now he might have a whole penny or 2 pennies of profit.
Yeah, the idea of farming, at least that I'm aware of, the idea of farming is not doing it because you like it. The idea of farming is doing it to make a profit, to make a living doing it. Most smaller growers today have to take a second job. Or the wife has to take a job, or both have to take a job to support the farm. seems to me that's convex. It's not the way it's supposed to be. You gotta turn that equation over. The farm is supposed to be there to support the family, not the family be there to support the farm.
Exactly.
We've got this equation inverted, and I think it's because what's happened to most farmers is their costs have increased, but the profits haven't. And that's really where the problem is. If you look at production, it is not kept pace with the rising cost of expenses. Your inputs keep going up. Your profits aren't. That's the problem. And we talked about farmers being price takers. Farmers are very much price takers.